Episode number 22, Oneness. Welcome back, friends. Thank you for tuning in to this podcast. This topic is as spiritual as it gets: oneness, union, the complete fulfillment, completion. On one hand, I am not going to tell you anything new in this episode because you might have had the experience of oneness in your life. And on the other hand, as I dove into it, because this is also my desire to achieve oneness. Well, oneness with what? With the divine, with the source. I noticed that it also helps me to read about it, to listen about it. I had my own experiences of oneness in past life regression, in meditation, and yet I want more. So we are going to talk about this desire, and we want it whether we realize it consciously or not. Very often, when we are not spiritually inclined in life, when we are not spending much time, we are not putting a lot of attention to spirituality, we still have the desire to achieve something. Achieve what? Some sort of completion, fulfillment. Everybody wants to be fulfilled. Nobody wants to feel empty. And very often we are going after the wrong things to achieve that oneness, to achieve that fulfillment. Don't worry, I'm going to cover it all in this podcast. I am enjoying this day so much. We have this beautiful weather right now in Arizona. It's unusually cool, and my door is open. You may hear a fountain or not. I am looking at the blue sky, fresh spring leaves on the Chinese elm that is swaying in the wind just outside my window. And to my right, I have this old pomegranate tree that also has new, fresh leaves. And there's a fountain going on, the birds, fresh roses that just started blooming. It's beautiful. And it is the end of March. On top of that, I am recording a podcast about oneness. To me, it is perfection. I want to start from sharing with you this story. It is from one of my hypnotherapy teachers. In the beginning, there was the source, the all that is, the totality of all and everything. Within this original source, there was consciousness of being, self-awareness, that which has been called God, Goddess, all that is, and I am that I am. In this state of total peace, perfection, and unmoving bliss, there seemed to develop a feeling of boredom, a longing for something else. This urge for something else impelled Source to split off individual sparks of consciousness in order to explore itself in all dimensions, to experience what there was to experience, and finally to rejoin, enhancing the original source with the gathered experience. Each spark of this oneness has a slightly different and recognizable vibration. Each is individual, yet an integral and essential part of the oneness, the totality. End of quote. What happened in that moment? We were all one. We were together with the source. And when the source decided to split and send out the particles of itself into the universe, we felt perhaps rejected, perhaps abandoned, but it was all for good reason. To seek something else out of boredom. That was the only reason. And we are still traveling through time, space, and dimensions, and we are longing for that oneness. We are longing to go back home. What do you think about this fragment? When I read it, I thought that this is one of the simplest explanations of what happened originally. We are going to again form an organism that will go and rejoin the source. But in the meantime, what happens in our individual lives as we experience this life, this incarnation in a spiritual way, in an emotional way, we often are aware of that division, of that separation. This is the reason why in daily life we experience a sense of separation, or at least we are aware of the desire for fulfillment, the desire to be together, to belong, desire for completion. And we do so many different things to achieve that. Do you recall moments of spiritual oneness? When did it happen? In what moment? Was it with another person? Was it in nature? Perhaps you spent a night alone under the stars? Was it in meditation, in prayer, contemplating God, witnessing beauty? Or perhaps you tried different techniques to alter your consciousness. So we don't have to wait to the end of time to experience that oneness, that lasting oneness. We can touch those moments. We can still experience it as humans having the physical body. One of the ways to experience it is using life between lives sessions. This is simply a hypnotherapy technique. If we do not have that regular practice of coming into ourselves to seek oneness, to create timelessness, stillness, then we will always be looking to the external to fulfill us. I am not here to say that we shouldn't be doing it. We absolutely should be doing this, because this is also, it also comes from the desire for more, the desire to experience something else. It is only to say not to exclusively rely on those external sources of fulfillment. And if you have been on this earth for a few decades, you probably realize that you may achieve something very fulfilling on the physical level, on the material level, and then the fulfillment fades away. It doesn't last. There is nothing wrong with this. Nothing went wrong in this moment. It is absolutely natural thing that happens. It made me think that we were created this way. Nature, after all, doesn't make mistakes. But why is it this way? We go after something, we achieve it. There is a moment of happiness, and then it fades away, and we are on to the next thing. I decided to look at it from this perspective. Nothing went wrong. In that dip, in that place of void, after the high, there is a place of emptiness that we try to feel, and this gets us going. That's why we have that desire to go after the next thing. This is how evolution happens. But when you think about achieving oneness on the spiritual level, right here in the physical body, the same happens. We achieve that oneness, the moment of oneness. It feels like it's a timeless moment, but the physical world calls us back, and we lose that sense of oneness, that sense of fulfillment. Nothing went wrong, because once you have that feeling, you will want to come back to it. So there will be the desire, the drive to achieve that again, to reconnect with that source again, to go back to the source, to create conditions for that union again. And in this work, we are evolving ourselves spiritually, because in that place, we cannot help but see ourselves for who we are. That means we no longer believe in separation as we did before. The moments of separation in physical life are the hardest moments, the most difficult, the most painful moments. And we are separating ourselves from the source with our thinking, with our ego based thinking. But once you have a regular practice of coming back to this present moment, getting the glimpses of oneness, you will realize that it is in your power to create that oneness. And you no longer have to separate yourself with your ego based thinking. Of course, we all search for external fulfillment using external things. And then we are disappointed that that fulfillment doesn't last. A Course in Miracles reminds us about searching within and not seek outside of ourselves. Page 617 has a chapter called Seek Not Outside Yourself. I am going to read it to you. And if you are not familiar with the language of A Course in Miracles, I know you just have to read it 5 times in order to get it. Did I just say that it's cool? Well, I'm overheating here. Okay, so here's that quote: Seek not outside yourself, for it will fail, and you will weep each time an idol falls. Heaven cannot be found where it's not, and there can be no peace except in there. Each idol that you worship when God calls will never answer in His place. There is no other answer you can substitute and find the happiness His answer brings. Seek not outside yourself, for all your pain comes simply from a futile search for what you want, insisting where it must be found. Important sentence right here. All our pain comes from our futile search for what we want, but we insist where it must be found. In other words, we are not looking at other possibilities. We are stubborn. This is where I must find my happiness. And this is how we experience more pain. What if it's not there? Do you prefer that you be right or happy? Be you glad that you are told where happiness abides and seek no longer elsewhere. You will fail. But it is given you to know the truth. Do not seek for it outside yourself. No one who comes here, no human that is born on earth, comes without some lingering illusion or some dream that there is something outside of himself that will bring happiness and peace to him. If everything is in him, this cannot be. And therefore, by his coming, he denies the truth about himself. We all make this mistake. And it seems like that truth is hidden away from us, but there are also reminders of where to find it. The lingering illusion will impel him to seek out 1,000 idols and to seek beyond them for 1,000 more, and each will fail him. I don't know if there's any better sentence that will illustrate our futile search for happiness, for lasting happiness on the outside. But we all get the reminders. All idols of this world were made to keep the truth within from being known to you, and to maintain allegiance to the dream, that means the illusion, that you must find what is outside yourself to be complete and happy. It is vain to worship idols in the hope of peace. God dwells within, and your completion lies in Him. No idol takes His place. Do not seek outside yourself. And books like A Course in Miracles were prepared for these times to remind us where to find our happiness and our heaven and our peace. What are we afraid of? There's a myth that we need to give up our material possessions in order to have the union with God, with the divine. But what if the only thing that we need to leave behind is our fear, our ego based thinking that creates pain? What if the only thing you need to give up is fear and doubts? When we are stuck in ego based thinking, we are stuck in competition, pain, and fear. We are stuck in anger. We are stuck in thinking that we are special. And if we give it up, there is simply more oneness. You give up separation for love, peace, and oneness. It sounds like a pretty fair exchange. If you ever have any doubts that you should leave behind the material in order to be closer to the divine, I have something for you, some fragments from the Radiance Sutras that teach us that both are important. The physical is important and the spiritual is important. We cannot deny ourselves anything because abundance is our right. So the first fragment is Sutra number 50. All around you, in every moment, the world is offering a feast for your senses. Songs are playing, tasty food is on the table, fragrances are in the air, colors fill the eyes with light. You who long for union, attend this banquet with love in focus. The outer and inner worlds open to each other. Oneness of vision, oneness of heart. Right here in the midst of it all, mount that elation, ascend with it, become identical with the ecstatic essence, embracing both worlds. End of quote. We are here in the physical body. Nature makes no mistakes. We were given our senses in order to experience life and the pleasures of life. And we also have that divine spark within. Because we come from the source, we are a part of it. That's why we crave it. We have within ourselves a sparkle of eternity. So let's go to page 128, Sutra number 93. Wherever your heart journeys, on whatever expedition, in your outer life and secret inner realms, breathe in intimacy with infinity. Where can you go to avoid the one in whom all exists? Where can you go to avoid the one in whom all exists? Reach down into your deepest being. Take a stand in eternity. Walk through the world. See every situation as an expansion of the mystery. Savor the tremble of recognition. The God in you is touching the God out there. End of quote. But let me go back to this one fragment. Where can you go to avoid the one in whom all exists? You can't. It's all that is. Reach down into your deepest being. Take a stand in eternity. I have this image of a river flowing underneath my conscious awareness. And I imagine myself stepping down to that river of timelessness and peace, that eternal river that always flows there, deep within my consciousness. Peace is always there, accessible to us. Quite fast, actually. Sometimes it's enough to take just one breath to access that place. Every single one of us has a sparkle of eternity within. When you think about that, can you see yourself a little bit differently when you realize that you have a spark of eternity within you? And every day we are participating in eternity. What do we need to do? How do we achieve that oneness? I think that in daily life, in our physical body, we just have glimpses of that oneness, that union in the places of timelessness. A Course in Miracles reminds us to get as much as we can into this present moment. And it calls it a holy instant. Everything that you want, all the answers that you are seeking are here in the holy instant. What helps is also an intention. David Hawkins, in the book Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, talks about our spiritual development and the guidelines for our spiritual development. David talks about intention. Spiritual progress is energized by intention, and that intention is reinforcing dedication, commitment, and patience to the practice. So, overall, he wants us to create a devotional attitude towards this practice. But then David talks about something that changes completely the paradigm of spiritual practice. He says that normally people would have a spiritual practice like formal meditation that is separate from daily life. But usually, if that practice requires being separate from other people or requires a lot of silence, usually this kind of practice gets abandoned. And what is better is to have a spiritual practice that is incorporated into daily life. And he says practically it works well to select the spiritual principle and then make it one's inner rule of life, to be applied consistently and relentlessly, no matter what. I don't know how you feel about oneness in your life. Is this something that you consciously crave? Is this something that you are aware of, like something is missing? A lot of people have a sense that something is missing, but I don't know what it is. So I started this podcast from a story about how we were all separated from a source, a story none of us remembers, but we sometimes have a feeling of abandonment and rejection. So what if we practice going back to the source? On one hand, it can create a sense of oneness. On the other hand, maybe we can let go of some of the heaviness of being abandoned or rejected. So imagine this, and please do not do it while driving or if you have to have your undivided attention somewhere else, because I know when I am telling people to imagine something, my voice can put them to sleep or rather to an altered state of consciousness. So when you can sit down and close your eyes, imagine that you are right there together with the light. And there is that need to expand and explore, to experience something else. And you are now expelled into the universe to seek something else and to experience something else. What did you make it mean in the moment of this spontaneous travel? What did you make it mean? Was it a surprise to you? Do you miss being together in oneness? Stop where you are right now, turn around, and decide to go back to the source. Yes, just like this, you can turn around as the sparkle of consciousness and go back, travel to the source, just because you miss it. And there you are, back in the sphere of divine light, welcomed, embraced, loved with unconditional love. Be there together in timelessness. You may feel the tangible silence, the warmth of this place, ultimate comfort. But the source says, go and explore, go on adventures, witness beauty, use your senses. And this time, you have time to say goodbye, knowing that you will be back. And off you go. Travel across the sky, across space, as a unique sparkle of consciousness, one of a kind. You go, but you know that you will be back. You are on this adventure for a reason. You can always get back in touch with the source. Any moment of the day. Any moment of the day. And yet, we are still here, participating in this feast for eyes and senses. Being in the human body, we can have the best of both worlds. Thank you for listening.